She sacrificed meals to buy books. What the millionaire CEO discovered changed everything. In the small, bustling heart of rural Nebraska, a story unfolded that would serve as a significant reminder of sacrifice and love. Sarah, a devoted single mother, woke each day like a warrior. At 36, she wore her exhaustion like a second skin, always pushing through for her son Jake. Long hours as a waitress and part-time store clerk turned her work shoes into a second home. The kitchen was often hauntingly quiet, as she chose to skip meals just so Jake could have the latest books to feed his heart for words. Every title he devoured ignited in him the spark of dreams she wished to fan with every ounce of her being. But then came the day that shattered their world. An unexpected car accident stole everything from them. In an instant, Jake was taken away by his affluent relatives to a lavish suburb of Lincoln, leaving Sarah clutching her heart, the air thick with despair. She felt like a ghost in their small town, drifting aimlessly through her days, holding the echo of her son's laughter tightly in her memories while he soared into a world filled with opportunities, yet uncharted fears. Jake, thrust into the arms of a family draped in luxury, faced a whirlwind of high expectations and whispered judgments about his humble background. Although surrounded by devices and cheer, he constantly battled an identity crisis, torn between the opulence of his new life and the warm love of his mother still flickering back home. Hours melted into deadlines as he became the star student, the golden boy whose achievements sparkled, yet were undercut by the weight of shame whenever he recalled the sacrifices Sarah had made just to see him succeed. As the years rolled on, Jake prepared for a prestigious college, scholarship in hand, becoming a figure of admiration. But beneath that sharp suit he donned for the community event, a storm brewed inside. The air was saturated with excitement mingled with a faint scent of betrayal, as he took the podium to share his story of triumph. The crowd sat in rapt attention, unaware of the internal battle raging within him, the fear of not belonging, of being an imposter amidst success. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. There he stood, poised to speak, his palms sweating against the crisp paper of his notes. For a moment time seemed to stand still. The whispers of doubt slithered through the audience, tainting their cheers. Yet amidst that sea of faces was a memory, a tattered book of poetry his mother had hidden beneath his bedsheets, a treasure filled with words of love. As he spoke he shed light on Sarah's sacrifices, her love embedded in every syllable he clung to. Just as courage surged within him to invite her on stage, the room shifted. Whispers grew louder, an agonizing tempest challenging his resolve. He locked eyes across the crowd, desperately searching for his mother. Would he bridge the chasm between his two worlds? Or would the walls of prejudice keep him separate from his roots forever? The electric tension surged like lightning in the air, leaving everyone questioning what belonging truly meant. Jake's heart raced as he stood there, caught between two lives. He could see the excitement in the familiar faces of his peers, their smiles radiating pride. But those smiles felt hollow, as if they were painted on a canvas of expectations. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe as flashes of Sarah's pale face surfaced. What if he faltered? The thought gripped him like ice. What if he couldn't find the words to explain the emptiness he felt, the longing for that genuine connection he had lost? The applause echoed around him, yet it sounded muffled, as if he were submerged underwater, yearning for the surface. Today, he began, his voice shaky but determined. Today I stand before you not just as a scholarship recipient or a student known for my achievements. He paused and scanned the audience. I'm here as a son. A ripple of surprise ran through the crowd. Some seemed confused by his tone, others intrigued. He took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of love he had for Sarah into those 4 words. My mother sacrificed everything. The narrative started to shift. He shared stories of late-night study sessions with dog-eared pages, of the sweet smell of homemade dinners that filled their tiny house, and of the countless times Sarah chose to skip the meals so he could eat. Each sentence dripped with sincerity, revealing layers of pain and pride intertwined with laughter and love. He could see mothers in the crowd nodding, their eyes shimmering with tears as they recognized the story of sacrifice. He talked about the drive to succeed as a way to honor his mother, yet admitted how the gilded cage he currently inhabited felt suffocating. The more he spoke, the more his voice strengthened, shedding layers of doubt. Every achievement I have is rooted in her sacrifices. Her determination became my fuel, but I feel lost between the person you see and who I truly am. The auditorium was alive with whispers, hearts beating in sync with his words. Jake spotted a few familiar faces from his past, the kids he once played with, now sitting among the elite. Mixed feelings stirred in him, a cocktail of nostalgia and resentment. It was unfair, wasn't it? He was torn apart and reconstructed for a life that should have always been his. As he spoke of his mother, the essence of her love swelled in his chest, warming the cold space doubt had occupied. I'm proud of where I come from. It's this love, this struggle that shaped me. His voice cracked, raw with emotion. And I want the world to know who she is and what she has done for me. The room fell silent, captivated by the sincerity that illuminated the moment. He could feel their eyes now, not just seeing a young scholar but a boy who had grown up fighting for a brighter future, aided by the one person who believed in him most, a simple, yet mighty woman who never stopped dreaming. In that silence, clarity struck him. There was power in vulnerability, and it could bridge the immense divide between his two worlds. As he finished, he extended an invite to his mother, his voice ringing with an urgency he hadn't expected. Mom, will you please join me? Faces turned towards the back where Sarah stood, a stunned expression on her face, holding the weight of all those years in her eyes. Jake's heart fluttered between hope and fear. Would she take that step? Would their worlds collide in that moment? And as Sarah started to move towards the stage, every heartbeat in the room felt like a drumroll leading to an answer no one yet knew. Would this confrontation spell acceptance or further division between the lives they led apart? The tension crackled. This wasn't just about Jake's journey, it was the beginning of their reunion. Or perhaps the start of a complex chapter anew. Sarah's breath caught as she took a step forward, the weight of the past pulling at her like a familiar yet bitter anchor. She hesitated, caught between the encouragement emanating from the audience and the hesitation entwined with the memories of how hard life had been. As she walked, each step felt heavier than the last, the applause fading into a distant hum. Jake's eyes were fixed on her, swirling with a kaleidoscope of emotions: relief, longing, and uncertainty. When their eyes met, it was a collision of worlds. Jake saw the sacrifices in her gaze, the love that had fueled her fight, and he hoped she could see his heart laid bare. Come on, Mom, he whispered, merely audible above the rising expectation. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, a collective breath held in the air as if to say, will she come? Will she fall into her son's embrace? Sarah felt exposed, every secret, every fear, laid bare for everyone to witness. And then she took another step, her small frame seeming fierce in that moment. People shifted, leaning in for a better view. Intrigued by what they knew was unfolding, perhaps the most honest moment of connection they'd ever witnessed. She reached the edge of the stage, her hands trembling, as Jake extended one toward her. A bridge spanning years of separation. Mom, he urged, his voice thick with unshed tears. Please. Emotions surged in Sarah, a whirlwind of pride, sorrow, and a flickering flame of hope. She could feel the audience's eyes on them, their judgments and opinions blending with something deeper, a shared humanity that flickered through their gazes. In that silence she remembered all the afternoons spent huddled over textbooks together, the nights spent dreaming of a better future, and the unseen toll it had taken on Jake. With a deep breath, she took a leap of faith. Sarah stepped onto the stage, closing the distance between them. The moment was fragile and potent, as though everything they'd fought against and for culminated in this heartbeat. And as Sarah reached out, Jake pulled her in, wrapping her in an embrace that felt both like home and like the unfamiliar. It was a moment drenched in the permission to be vulnerable. The audience erupted into applause, but Jake barely heard it. Instead, he felt the warm weight of his mother in his arms, the undeniable presence that had long been missing. I'm so proud of you, Jake, she murmured into his shoulder, her voice cracking. Thank you for everything, for believing in me, he murmured back. I'm trying to find me again, Mom. The moment was electric, charged with raw emotion and unspoken words. They stood together, two souls momentarily woven back into one. united against a world that tried to pull them apart. But as the applause swelled around them, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. It felt more like the beginning of a reckoning. The crowd's cheers grew louder, a cacophony of support and celebration. Yet in the midst of it all, Jake felt the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. There was so much left unsaid, and this moment, as beautiful as it was, didn't erase the years of hurt and confusion that lingered between them. "Jake," Sarah whispered, stepping back, looking deep into his eyes now glistening with tears of joy. "What happens next?" He felt the weight of her question, heavy and profound, hanging in the air between them. How were they supposed to bridge the gap that had formed over all those years apart? Would their new connection withstand the trials ahead? The answer teetered on the edge, waitingly palpable in the charged space they now occupied. As the applause faded into an intimate silence, Jake took a deep breath, ready to step into the unknown. "I guess we have to figure it out together," and with that, the next chapter of their lives began, fraught with possibilities and uncertainties, a shared journey filled with the promise of healing and discovery. How would they reconcile their separate paths? Would they find the strength to confront old wounds and emerge renewed? The warmth of the moment lingered in the air like the fading notes of a favorite song, but a knot of uncertainty lay deep within Jake's chest. He and Sarah stood at a crossroads of their own making, and the journey ahead felt daunting. Would this reunion, electrifying as it was, stand against the currents of their past? Gathering himself, Jake offered a shaky smile. "Maybe we should spend some time together just talking?" He hoped his voice sounded steadier than his insides felt. "Talking?" Sarah echoed, her brow furrowing slightly. "Like a coffee shop or?" "Yeah, something like that. Just us," he said, glancing around at the crowd that had become a safe cocoon around them. "I think we need to make sense of everything," she finished for him, still searching his eyes, the depth of her own uncertainty shining through. There was something both comforting and terrifying in knowing they were on common ground, lost together, but willing to find their way. "Exactly." The flicker of hope in her gaze made him brave. As they stepped down from the stage, the crowd parted, their lingering cheers washing over Jake like a soothing balm. He caught snippets of excited chatter, admiration filling the space they vacated. But as supportive as they felt, the real challenge was about to unfold in the quiet intimacy of a coffee shop, away from the eyes of the world. Once in the car, Sarah turned to him, hesitating again. "Jake, I want to say how sorry I am. For everything. For being absent when you needed me, for letting things get so far apart." Her voice broke, and Jake felt a pang of sorrow not only for her but for the distance that had formed between them. "Mom, we can't change the past. It's done. We just have to focus on the here and now." The drive was punctuated by moments of silence, both of them lost in thoughts that felt too big, too overwhelming to voice. Jake stared out the window, watching trees blur by, the world moving fast while his heart raced with trepidation. As they finally arrived at a small cafe, he took a breath to calm himself. He stepped out first, holding the door open for her. "Let us just take it one thing at a time, okay?" "Okay," she replied, her voice soft but earnest. Inside, the rich aroma of coffee floated through the air, mingling with freshly baked pastries. They chose a quiet booth, a small sanctuary amid the hustle and bustle. The waitress arrived with warm smiles, taking their orders, and as they waited, Jake leaned forward, ready to cut through the tension. "Mom, what do you want us to be?" he blurted, not fully aware that the question was boiling inside him. Surprise flickered across her face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we can't pretend the past doesn't exist. But I want to know you've seen me fail and rise. Do you see me now?" She moved her hands slowly, the truth layered within her eyes. "I see so much potential, Jake. You're growing up and it scares me sometimes, but I want to support you. I want to be part of your life again." Jake nodded, feeling a surge of optimism mixed with nervousness. "I want that too. But I also don't know how to move forward. It all feels so heavy." Just then their coffees arrived, encapsulating the moment in warmth. As he wrapped his hands around the cup, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their next steps wouldn't just forge a new beginning for them. They would redefine who they were to each other. "Maybe," he suggested tentatively, "we can start by sharing our stories. What shaped us over the years?" "Stories?" Sarah raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile breaking through the tension. "You have no idea how many stories I have for you." "Then let us hear them." Jake leaned back, inviting her to share, ready for whatever revelations lay ahead. But just as he thought they were on the path toward healing, his phone buzzed on the table. A message appeared, and as he glanced down, he felt his heart drop. It was from Emily, his friend, and the words read like a punch. "Jake, we need to talk. It's urgent." His pulse quickened, and he closed his eyes, feeling that familiar weight of uncertainty creeping back. How could he balance everything, both the past and the future, without dropping the pieces they were trying so hard to put together? "Jake?" Sarah's voice pulled him back into focus, each syllable tinged with concern. "What is it?" He forced a smile but sensed that something, perhaps profound, would change within the next few minutes. Would this looming issue pull him back into stormy waters just as they were starting to navigate calmer seas? As the cafe buzzed around them, he could only wonder, what new revelation would he discover that may alter everything they were beginning to build? Jake felt the weight of Sarah's gaze, each word from the message carving a deeper line of worry between his brows. "It's just a message from Emily," he said, attempting to downplay the knot forming in his stomach. But the truth was, Emily rarely texted unless it was important, and the urgency in her words rang alarms in his head. "Do you need to take it?" Sarah asked, her focus shifting to her coffee, the steam curling into the air like her uncertainty. No, let's just keep talking." He forced the words out, setting the phone face down on the table. The last thing he wanted was to let another conversation slip away from him, especially not after everything they had fought to come together again. "Okay." Sarah's eyes softened, her worry mingling with maternal instinct. "Let us dive into those stories then. What do you want to know?" Jake smiled faintly, grateful for the compassionate thread that tied them together, despite their fractured history. "What was it like for you after everything happened? When you left?" The corner of Sarah's mouth twitched, a fragile smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It was lonely. I thought I could give you space, let you grow on your own. But every moment felt like I was losing you more." Her voice trembled slightly, a shadow creeping into her expression. "I tried to focus on work, but it just made me miss you worse. I wanted to be there for you, but I didn't know how." Jake felt the lump in his throat grow bigger. He had always assumed Sarah's decision to step back was rooted in anger or misunderstanding. He had never realized it stemmed from a deep-seated fear of not being good enough. "I was struggling too, trying so hard to make everything perfect in your absence. I just wish." His voice trailed off, and he looked down at his cup, searching for clarity in the swirling brown liquid. "Wish what?" she asked gently, with a tone that coaxed him to be open. He sighed, gathering his thoughts. "I wished you had fought to stay, even if it meant being messy, even if it felt complicated. I needed you, Mom. I just didn't know how to say it." Tears sparkled in Sarah's eyes, and Jake's heart pounded as he watched the walls between them begin to crumble. "I should have fought for you, Jake," she whispered, a deep sincerity in her voice that made his chest ache. "I was so afraid of losing you that I thought letting go was the best way. But I see now how wrong I was." He reached across the table, instinctively placing his hand over hers, finding comfort in the warmth between them. In that small gesture, Jake felt a connection reestablish itself, a thread of understanding that had been frayed for too long. Just as Sarah opened her mouth, perhaps to share more, the shrill tone of Jake's phone broke through. They both jumped at the sound, and he could see her expression shift to disappointment. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen as anxiety swelled within him again. "Just an urgent work thing," he said hastily, not wanting to drag them back to the uncertainty of his life outside this moment. "Maybe it's a good idea to check it," Sarah suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake sat there for a moment, torn. He couldn't ignore Emily. He couldn't push away whatever complicated mess was waiting outside this cafe. But what if he trailed off, the possibilities racing through his mind? What if it's not good news? Then we handle it together. Just like we're trying to do now. Just be honest. Her eyes sparkled with hope, and for the first time since they sat down, Jake realized how much he wanted to lean into this moment. Taking a slow breath, he flipped his phone over and looked at her. "Okay, let us face this together. But let us promise no more hiding from each other. Not now, not ever." Sarah nodded, a single tear escaping the corner of her eye, but there was light in her conviction. "Agreed." Jake picked up his phone again, the weight feeling less daunting yet still heavy. He opened Emily's message and braced himself for whatever news awaited. The vibrancy of the cafe faded into a blur, and the air felt charged, as if they were standing on the edge of a revelation that had the power to reshape everything they were beginning to understand. Jake? Sarah's voice edged with concern again, pulling him back. What does it say? He felt the ground beneath him shift as the words came into focus, changing everything in a split second. What lay ahead would test not just his relationship with Sarah, but the path he'd carved for himself as well. It says, he hesitated, sensing the magnitude of what they were about to confront. It says we need to meet immediately. The unspoken weight of that urgency loomed over them, and Jake realized that their stories might just intertwine in ways he had never imagined. All while knowing that the moment for their mother-son bond to truly heal was right in the balance. Would they weather the storm together? The cafe's chatter faded as Jake's mind raced. He stared at the phone, his heart hammering in his chest. What could Emily possibly want that required a face-to-face meeting? He glanced up at Sarah, whose expression mirrored his concern. It felt as if the air thickened around them, pressing down with unspoken words and shared fears. Do you think it's about the project? Jake asked, half-heartedly hoping for a mundane answer that could pull him back from the edge of panic. Sarah shook her head slightly, her brow furrowing. If it were, she would have just called you. This feels serious. Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. I can't believe this is happening now. The mix of newfound connection with Sarah and the looming threat of bad news from Emily felt overwhelmingly heavy. Maybe it's a warning? Sarah ventured. You said she hardly messages unless it's important. Jake grimaced, the reality hitting him. What if something happened? What if the thought troubled him but he didn't finish the sentence? Jake, Sarah said softly, squeezing his hand. Whatever it is, we can face it together. Her tone was steady, anchoring him in a moment that threatened to spiral into chaos. He exhaled, grounding himself with her presence. They had promised honesty. You know, we've both been through so much. He started, looking her in the eye. Do you think that after all this time we're finally starting to find our way back? Yes, she replied, a spark of hope illuminating her features. But you have to let me in. This meeting, it could be a stepping stone for both of us. He smiled weakly, but the concern still twisted inside him. I just wish I knew what was coming. The phone buzzed again, Emily's name flashing bright on the screen, just as Jake braced himself to hit dismiss. Are you going to ignore it? Sarah teased lightly, but the worry behind her joke was palpable. No, I need to see what she says. I owe her that much. He took another deep breath, valuing the sound of their connection, the firm reality of their reunion against the tension of the unknown. He opened his messaging app and stared at the screen, where Emily's words pulsed with urgency. Jake, there's something important we need to talk about. It's about your father. His stomach dropped. The man who had been a hollow figure in his life, a ghost of disappointment, had lingered in Jake's memories like an unresolved question. What does it say? Sarah leaned in, her eyes wide, reflecting his mounting dread. It's about my father, Jake whispered, almost afraid to say it out loud. The implications swirled in his mind, a storm of emotions begging to break free. Do you want to meet her now? She asked, concern etched into her brow. I can't keep pushing it off, he muttered, heart racing. The need for clarity began to outshadow the echoes of fear. But why now? What could she possibly want to discuss? As he sent a quick reply, a wave of uncertainty crashed over him. What if it was connected to Sarah? A part of Jake's brain warned him to tread carefully. He wanted to protect this blossoming bond with his mother, but the shadow of his past loomed large. Sarah leaned forward slightly, her warmth all around him. Whatever comes next, we tackle it together, remember? He nodded slowly, wrapping his fingers around hers tightly. Her presence grounded him even as he grasped the weight of impending revelations. As they both sat in silence, the moment hung in the air, electrified with possibilities. Just then his phone buzzed again. Are you ready for this? Sarah whispered, her eyes gentle yet resolute. Jake took another deep breath, bracing for whatever storm lay ahead. Not really. But there's no going back now. As he opened Emily's latest message, the magnitude of the moment pressed down on him. What secrets would unravel? The stories of their past hung in the balance. And as they braced for impact, Jake felt his heart pound with both anxiety and anticipation. "Let's do this," he said softly, ready to confront the truth that had tangled their fates together all along. Would they find strength in honesty, or would it tear them apart once more? Jake's pulse quickened as he opened Emily's message. Her words jumped out, demanding attention. "Meet me at the old library. It's important. Please, Jake." The dread settled deeper in his stomach. Memories of the library flooded back, dusty corners filled with stories, and a mother who sought refuge in its pages. But now it felt more like a tomb of buried secrets. "Let us go," he said abruptly, standing up with determination. Sarah followed suit, her eyes searching his face for answers. The short walk to the library felt like a lifetime. Each step related to memories bitter and sweet of the times he spent there with his family, the silence that rang out louder than laughter. Jake brushed aside the nagging thought that this meeting might shatter any hope for reconciliation with his estranged father. "What are you thinking?" Sarah broke the silence, her voice smooth like a balm to his frayed nerves. "Just what I might learn." "Emily usually avoids talking about him," Jake admitted, glancing at her. "I'm scared what she has to say might ruin everything we're building." Sarah stepped closer, brushing her shoulder against his. "You're strong, Jake. We'll get through this, whatever it is." Inside the library, the atmosphere was heavy, thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten stories. The quiet creaked beneath their feet as they moved through the aisles. Emily was already there, her back turned to them. She was lost in thought, oblivious to the world around her. "Mom," Jake called out, his voice echoing off the vintage shelves. Emily turned, her expression unreadable. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed around them, and Jake felt all at once like a little boy hoping for affection from the parent who had drifted away. She looked older than he remembered, worry lines carving paths around her eyes. "Jake, I'm glad you came," Emily said, her eyes flicking toward Sarah. "Thank you for bringing her." Sarah offered a soft smile, but Jake felt the tension crackling anew. "What's this about?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The older woman took a deep breath. "It's about your father's health and some things he never told you." Jake's heart sank. A lump formed in his throat as he gestured for her to continue. Emily held her gaze steady, trying to gauge his reaction. "He's been diagnosed with a serious illness. He wants to see you. He doesn't have much time left." The finality of her words pierced through Jake, cutting into the swirl of emotions he had kept tucked away. What does he want? Lifting the weight of his past off his shoulders? Apologies now that he's facing death? Anger flared in Jake's chest, but he couldn't ignore the tight clenching of his heart. "He wants to make amends, Jake. He's ready to share his truth about everything," she replied, voice softening as she shifted closer. "He knows he hurt you, but he's terrified of losing the chance to make things right." Blinking back the sting of tears, Jake felt as if he were caught between two worlds. The hurt child that had yearned for approval wrestled with the adult who had vowed to leave behind resentment. "Is there more?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Yes," Emily said, eyes fixed on him. "He has something to tell you about why he chose to distance himself. You may not like it, but it's the truth." Silence hung heavy in the air, each moment stretching out into eternity as he weighed his options. Would he dare to confront the man who shaped him, for better or worse? "What are you feeling right now?" Sarah whispered, drawing closer to him. Jake took a deep breath, weighed down by uncertainty but spurred by an inkling of hope. "I don't know, I just need to know if it's true. If he's really changed." Emily watched him intently, her soft gaze urging him on. He thought about how often people wished for a second chance. "Maybe I do want to hear him out," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. He felt Sarah's reassuring squeeze on his arm, a reminder of the strength they shared. It was time to confront the past, but at what cost? Jake's eyes locked onto Emily. "When do we meet him?" As Emily outlined the plan, Jake's stomach churned with anxiety. He was about to open a door that could either heal or deepen wounds long left untouched. And just as he steeled himself for the confrontation, another thought struck him. Was he prepared for whatever truth awaited him on the other side? "Will I regret this?" He wondered silently, the weight of his decision looming larger than ever. The air in the old library felt electric as Emily spoke, though her words hung heavy like a thick fog. Jake fought against the disappointment curling in his chest. Facing his father felt monumental, and yet part of him just wanted to scream, to throw all these endless questions out into the cavernous space between them. Emily's voice pulled him back. You need to understand that he has changed. He has been reflecting on his life in a way he never has before. Reflecting? Jake echoed, the bitterness curling around the word. Where was that reflection when we needed it most? You have to give him a chance, sweetheart, Emily urged, her eyes pleading. Understand that sometimes regret can propel a person to change. Jake inhaled sharply, feeling Sarah beside him, the warmth of her presence offering faint comfort. I don't know if I can walk into that room and look him in the eye after everything, he confessed, his voice raw. Each syllable fell, shattering the silence like glass. He envisioned the meeting, the weight of his father's gaze. Could he bear the mix of anger and betrayal? Emily stepped closer, her hand reaching for his. Think about how you felt growing up. Those unanswered questions. This is your chance. He glanced at Sarah, who was wearing an expression of understanding mixed with unwavering support. What if his truth isn't what I want to hear? Jake said, his mind racing. What if I go in there and it just deepens the wounds? Then you face it together, Sarah encouraged softly. You don't have to carry it alone. A flicker of hope sparked within him. Maybe this was a way to find some closure. The thought mingled with the fear of the unknown. But was it stronger than the fear of staying silent? If only it were so simple. Each confrontation unearthed more confusion. How could he convey all the feelings he held inside? The resentment that had simmered for years. The tangled emotions were like a silent wall separating him from the father he barely knew anymore. Okay, he sighed, feeding the weight of his decision through clenched teeth. When do we meet? Emily hesitated, her eyes darting as if searching for the right words. Tomorrow, at his favorite cafe. P.S. Looking forward to seeing both of you. Tomorrow. The word struck like a heavy hammer against his resolve. And if it goes badly? Then you let him know how you feel, Emily urged, her voice steady. This isn't just for him. It's also for you. Her words resonated, setting off something inside Jake, a flickering flame of courage. He'd spent years letting his father's absence govern his life, holding on to hurt like a badge of honor. Maybe it was time to choose healing over pain. Do you think he really means it? He asked, the uncertainty flooding back as emotions tangled within him once more. Will he be different? Only you can find out. Sarah's voice was firm but filled with compassion. But you deserve this, Jake. You deserve to be heard. With a slight nod, Jake felt the gravity of his decision settling in, wrapping around him like another layer of self-protection. If he entered that meeting with a heart laid bare, would he finally lift the burden he had carried for too long? As he glanced around the library, the old books standing watch, he knew that tomorrow would lay the foundations of either reconciliation or more heartache. Either way, one thing loomed larger than all. Would he find the courage within to truly see his father and allow himself to be seen? But as hope battled against doubt, another chilling thought struck him. What if the realization changed everything he believed to be true about their past? And deep down he wondered, was he brave enough to face that truth? Jake barely slept that night. Thoughts of tomorrow churned in his mind like a storm. Shadows from the past danced in the corners of his room, stretching and warping with every anxious breath he took. Sarah had fallen asleep beside him, her even breathing a stark contrast to the tumult swirling inside him. He could feel the warmth of her presence, a sanctuary in the chaos, yet the impending meeting cast a bitter chill over whatever comfort it provided. Morning arrived with a dull grayness, as if the sky mirrored his mood. He sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, running the events of the day through his head. Each second seemed to stretch into eternity. The thought of facing his father playing a relentless loop. How would he react? What would he say? Emily entered, her smile warm and genuine. You ready for this? She asked, pouring a cup of coffee and handing it to him. Does it matter if I'm ready? The words slipped out before he could stop them, irritation flaring in his chest. Jake, just take a few deep breaths. Emily leaned closer, her eyes soft. You don't have to go in there expecting everything to be perfect. He nodded, but didn't he respond, consumed by thoughts of what might happen. Their time arrived much sooner than he wanted. The cafe, bright and bustling, felt foreign, too vibrant for what he was about to face. Jake glanced at Sarah. Her reassuring nod gave him a flicker of strength. She walked alongside him, both a shield and a reminder that he wasn't alone. As they approached the entrance, Jake's palms grew clammy. The chatter and laughter echoed around him, but all he could think about was the heavy anticipation in his chest. Everywhere he looked felt overwhelming, but perhaps nothing was more daunting than the thought of seeing his father sitting at a familiar table. There he was, his father, a shadow of the man Jake had built up in his mind over the years. He looked older, wearied, his once proud stature now slightly hunched. Yet, the moment their eyes met, something uncoiled inside Jake. It was that same gaze he remembered from childhood, mixed with shame and desperation. Jake, his father's voice broke through the noise around them, each syllable laden with something unspoken. Dad, Jake managed, his throat dry. He could feel the weight of the years sinking within him as he stepped closer, where past grievances met present uncertainty. The embrace was awkward. Jake felt his father's arms wrap around him, tentative yet yearning. Suddenly, a flood of memories gushed forth of childhood games, soft laughter, the bittersweet taste of ice cream on hot summer days that faded with neglect. "Thank you for coming," Jake's father said, holding him at arm's length, searching his son's eyes with a blend of hope and trepidation. "Let us just talk," Jake replied, his heart racing. The words held a deeper meaning than he could fully express. Sitting down, the barriers felt instantly palpable. He could see the questions reflected in his father's eyes. All that time lost, the mistakes made, and this tense moment teetering on the brink of intimacy or confrontation. Jake felt a surge of courage trembling in him. "I have so much to say." Before he could continue, his father interrupted. "I know I've hurt you." The air thickened with emotions. Jake's heartbeat echoed louder than the cafe's din. There was vulnerability there, but also uncertainty. What if the truth changes everything we've known? Jake's voice quivered. "Then we face it together," his father said softly, a flicker of understanding igniting between them. In that moment, Jake realized they were both stepping into unfamiliar territory, searching for something more than just answers. The hard truth was waiting, powerfully charged. But as they sat there, framed by the chatter around them, Jake began to wonder. What if the discovery on the other side of this conversation changed everything he thought about himself, not just his father? The cafe buzzed with life, but for Jake, time hung suspended in a delicate balance. He and his father were across from each other, the weight of unspoken words lingering heavily in the air. The tension felt electric, buzzing like a swarm of bees, alive with possibilities. Jake, his father, started, searching for his son's eyes, already brimming with emotions. "I know I've let you down more times than I can count. I know I can't change the past." The honesty in his voice sliced through the silent space, revealing cracks in the walls they had both built around themselves. "What do you want from me?" Jake couldn't help but ask, struggling against the swell of anger and longing. It was a simple question, yet layered with years of hurt. "I want you to understand why I left, why I vanished when you needed me most." His father's voice wavered, the regret evident. Stripped of bravado, the man Jake had built in his mind as a monster now seemed like a shattered man, sharing his own pain. Jake inhaled deeply. "Then tell me. I'm here now, but I need to hear the truth." His father nodded, as if the simple act was a means of fortifying himself. "I was scared, Jake. I was scared I wasn't good enough to be your father. That idea ruined everything. Sometimes running felt like the only choice I had." Scared. The word echoed shockingly loud in Jake's heart. He had thought of his father merely as selfish, but here, he was laid bare, weaving a narrative of confusion and fear. It was heart-wrenching yet strangely freeing. A whisper opening the door to understanding. "I spent years thinking my absence was a better choice than being a failure." His father continued, tears pooling in his eyes. "But I didn't realize then that my running was the real failure." The word struck chords deep within Jake, ones he hadn't allowed himself to touch before. "It's not just the absence that hurt," he said, voice raw. "It was the silence, the emptiness. You let the hatred for yourself obligate you to leave. Do you understand how it felt to grow up knowing that?" "I do," his father admitted, leaning forward, urgency brimming in his gaze. "And I want to make it right. Not just for me but for you." "Make it right?" Jake spat, anguish threading through his tone. "How can you make it right? You can't just waltz back in and repair what's broken. The time is gone. The years. His voice trailed off. He could feel the hot sting of tears behind his eyes. Jake felt Sarah's presence beside him, steady, anchoring him to this moment. He turned to her, seeking her strength. She offered a reassuring nod, an unspoken reminder that he didn't need to shoulder this alone anymore. Let him finish, she urged softly, and he felt impulsively brave for allowing more words to pass between them. Jake's father sat back, arms shaking slightly as he dampened the despair rippling silently. I'm not entitled to your forgiveness, Jake. But I want to make amends and listen. Really listen. Jake's heart raced, caught between the ferocity of the past and the crumpling walls of his father's vulnerability. What does that look like? What can you offer me now? Each word uncoiled, raw and desperate. It looks like honesty. His father looked directly into Jake's watering eyes. Like holding space for you to feel anger, confusion, and hurt. I want to be present for you now. I want closure, not just for me but for you too. The weight of it all nearly overwhelmed him. He could see it there, the possibility of rebuilding, of truly confronting who they were on the other side. Okay, Jake finally breathed. But it will take time. His father nodded solemnly. I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me that chance. Moments passed, tension wafting slowly away, replaced with cautious hope. They both understood that changing the narrative would be a marathon, not a sprint. I can't promise I'll forgive you tomorrow, or ever, Jake admitted, honesty spilling out like a reluctant truce. But I'm willing to try. I'll take it, his father said, voice cracking with genuine relief. I've wanted you back in my life every single day, Jake. I just didn't know how to come back. Just then, a small voice from the corner of the cafe interrupted their moment. A little girl giggled, spinning in delight around her mother. Jake's heart warmed at the sight, an echo of the innocence he had lost. He turned to his father. Do you know anything about being there for someone? His father's brow furrowed. What do you mean? This right here. Being present by just existing. Maybe you could try that? Jake's father softened. The paths of healing ahead illuminated by the softness of vulnerabilities peeled back. I promise to start by being present right now, in this moment. The world outside the cafe roared on. But inside this little bubble of new beginnings, Jake's heart flickered with fragile hope. Perhaps they could begin anew. As they finished their coffees, the cafe filled with the chatter of happiness and laughter, Jake felt lighter. Here was the beginning of transforming their destinies, the seeds of connection sowed. Jake. Sarah's voice held weight, filled with warmth. Are you okay? He nodded, the shift in their dynamic blooming within him. Yeah, think so. His father reached across the table, tentatively placing his hand atop Jake's. It was a simple gesture, a bridge from the past to future healing. Let us take it slow. Together. In that moment, Jake's heart felt full again. They would acknowledge the heavy shadows behind them, but they were no longer bound to remain beneath them. They were walking towards the light, a shared journey revitalizing their ties. Together, Jake echoed, the word infused with newfound strength. Footsteps along the path ahead felt steady now as they rose to leave the cafe, a symbol of resilience and hope etched deeply in their hearts. And just like the stories that filled the shelves around them, this tale was only just beginning. Don't let this inspirational journey end here. You need to subscribe now to ensure you catch all our upcoming stories that echo real-life transformations. Leave a like now to support your creators. Every thumbs up feeds the algorithm magic. Comment your thoughts and feelings about the ending. Share your own moments of growth. And most importantly, share instantly this transformative story with at least 5 friends who also need this wave of hope today. Together, let us spread the empowerment. Don't wait not even one more second to share.